Good day, men of God. I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be doing a part 2 on the concept of goals in the Bible. I'm going to give 5 reasons why it is important to have God make your goals for every season of your life. So, number 1, God's ways are what makes you build into successfulness. Without making Jesus your foundation, it will not stay up and it will not prosper. You'll find Psalms chapter 127, verse 1. Unless the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. Unless the Lord guards the city, the watchmen stay awake in vain. Also, Isaiah chapter 55, verse 9. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. What He wants you to build depends on the providence of God. What He calls us to build requires His grace. Even the things you use to protect, what you build will not hold up to its hype. So really being mindful that the things that God calls us to build are the ones that will be established, be sturdy, and be sufficient. But the things that what we want to build, one, have no order to them. Sometimes the things that we want to build can come from the ideas of others. Like, we can be easily entrenched into this one genre of aspects just because we saw this on TV, we saw this in a movie, we heard this in a song, and now we want it for ourselves. But that feeling doesn't last too long. And when that feeling goes, so does our whole reason, our whole desire for it goes. But sometimes we can be so invested into something like that just because the feeling goes does not mean the cost of how long it took us to get there goes too. And so we really need to be mindful that it's what He builds that makes it successful for us. Not what we want to build, but what He builds through us. Number 2, because God's ways gives directions to your achievements. Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. A man's heart plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. God's plans will not be something that can be replicated. When He wants to operate in the fullness of who He has called you to be, He will instruct you in the ways that He will establish you in fulfillment. It is easy to become attracted to how other people move into their own placement, especially when their position attracts fans and finances into their life. And this is just going back into it again, that yes, we can definitely be entrenched into other people's achievements, but just because other people have their achievements does not mean that that's not, one, going to last. 2, is not the plans and the purposes of God. And 3, do not have the protection of God. Number 3, God-given goals connects you to the right people according to His plans and purposes. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 22. Without counsel, plans go awry, but in the multitude of counselors, they are established. One of the biggest problems we face is getting connected to the right people. This can range from not knowing the people to establish you with a gig, the right people to teach you, the right people to loan you money for your business, and so on and so forth. We as believers must be confident and still and know that God is the author and finisher of our faith. He knows who and why we need to be connected to the people we need to be around. Even if it looks counterintuitive at first, He knows the end of a thing even before you start. You will find this out in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 11. Number 4, His goals will last for generations. Your goals will only last as long as you do. Psalms chapter 33, verse 11. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of His heart to all generations. When we establish the goals given by God, We are reminded that our Father is the King of the everlasting, the architect of the eternal, and the establisher of the never-ending. God's agenda is never just to satisfy one generation of man, but for it to be multiplied for the next generations to enjoy. Honestly, as men, we don't know how to prepare for our next generations with blessings that we have for now with them. I mean, let's be honest. We only know how to become successful off of our own interpretations. We don't know what our generations, our kids, and our kids' kids are going to do, how they're going to handle the business, how they're going to handle the ideas that we had for this last generation. They may not even want to. Their whole agenda may not even be about what we're doing, but it may take them somewhere else. But the plans and the purposes of God will not only prepare you, but prepare the generations for His plans and purposes too. Because His plans and purposes will carry on not just through you, but through them as well. And number 5, God's plans change you. We often want the change from God to appear in our lives, but don't want to change for God in our lives. We must be willing to accept that the goals God has given us is to include changing us as well for His good pleasure. This requires spending time with the Father, earnestly seeking out His intentions daily, and denying your old self, gaining new heights. Psalms chapter 51 verse 10 says, "Create in me a clean heart, O Lord, and renew a steadfast spirit in me." And Matthew chapter 6 verse 33 says, "But seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all other things shall be added to you." Many times as men, we have to be very honest with ourselves and say that we want change, but sometimes the hardest thing to change is ourselves. And depending on the age, we may be comfortable with where we're at. We may be comfortable with the character that we keep. And we may even think that we're too old to actually change. We're set in our ways. But as long as we have breath in our body, we not only have a responsibility to the plans and the purposes of God, but to the people that God brings us forth with to change. And as leaders in the household, it is our responsibility to be the initiators of change. So, men of God, I pray that these 5 important concepts of why it's important for God to plan out our goals has changed you, and it has cultivated something strong in you that will last for generations. Till the next time, see you later on Management Minute.